Okay, imagine this. You're following the news, right? And just hours after the U.S. President, Donald Trump, announces this supposed breakthrough, an agreement for a ceasefire between Thailand and Cambodia,
Yeah.
you suddenly hear reports of, well, fresh artillery clashes. Just like that.
Wow. So not exactly a ceasefire then.
Not at all. And it wasn't just like a one-off thing. This was the fourth day straight of really intense fighting along this huge, like, 800-kilometer border. We're talking helicopters, ambulances rushing around, constant conflict reported across different provinces. It was pretty chaotic.
It's a really stark contrast, isn't it? And that's exactly what we're digging into today in this deep dive, this ongoing border dispute between Thailand and Cambodia.
Yeah.
Conflict that, I mean, it's already cost over 30 lives and displaced, what, at least 150,000 people? It's staggering.
It really is. So our mission today really is to unpack these sources we've got, primarily looking at excerpts from a DW News YouTube transcript. We want to understand why.
Yeah.
Why, even when leaders are saying, okay, we're ready for talks, and there's international pressure, why does the fighting just keep going?
What are those sort of complex factors bubbling under the surface?
Exactly. We need to look at the official positions, sure, but also the reality on the ground and maybe those less obvious reasons, maybe strategic incentives that just keep this uncertainty going for so many people.
And what jumps out immediately is that huge gap, right, between the diplomatic talk and what's actually happening.
Definitely.
I mean, leaders from both countries, according to the reports we saw, they said they were willing to talk. Potential ceasefire, maybe meeting in Malaysia.
Yeah, I remember that part.
But then, like you said, almost right after the announcement that they'd agreed to work on a ceasefire, boom, the shelling starts up again.
So it makes you ask, okay, if there's an agreement, even a basic one, what's actually undermining it so fast?
Exactly.
And what's really interesting, or maybe telling, is how quickly both sides started blaming each other for the continued fighting.
Oh, absolutely. Classic move.
Even while they're still publicly saying, yeah, we're ready to negotiate, Cambodia's Prime Minister, Hun Man-aye, he apparently told Donald Trump that Cambodia agreed to an immediate and unconditional ceasefire.
Unconditional. That's a strong word.
Right. So from your perspective, does that sound like genuine intent? Or is it more of a tactical thing?
Well, the sources suggest it's probably a bit mixed. Cambodia's stance was stated as unconditional.
Okay.
But Thailand's acting prime minister, while agreeing to pursue a ceasefire, had this pretty significant condition attached.
Ah, okay. What was that?
They insisted Cambodia had to give assurances, basically guarantee, that they'd stop shelling Thai civilians.
I see.
So their position was very much about protecting their own people first. It wasn't just a simple yes to peace. It was, peace, but on our terms.
So yeah, not just a clean break, not a mutual, okay, guns down. There were clear preconditions on Thailand's side. And it does seem like there was some serious international arm twisting involved. Donald Trump reportedly warned both sides, essentially saying, look, if you don't get this ceasefire sorted, the U.S. isn't really prepared to move forward on trade talks with either of you.
That's significant leverage.
Huge leverage. And Thailand's acting PM's reply, according to the quote, was quite revealing. That's not a problem, as we also want a ceasefire. We adhere to this principle. It kind of sounds like, okay, we agree with the international pressure, but it also neatly reinforces our own position, our own conditions.
Right. It aligns, but maybe for different reasons. But then you look at the ground truth, and it paints a much rougher picture than those diplomatic statements, doesn't it?
Oh, totally.
The DW correspondent who was near that Thai city, Ubon Ratchathani, they confirmed it. Fourth day. Intense, sustained fighting. All across that massive 800-kilometer border.
Yeah.
They described it as, a really remote area generally, but with these clear pockets where the fighting was really concentrated.
And the reports mentioned specific places, like Cessation province. Residents there actually saw helicopters overhead, ambulances moving people.
And they identified them mostly as soldiers, right? Coming from the front lines.
Yeah, exactly. So clearly, active military operations. And it wasn't just isolated there.
No, the fighting was also reported over in Surin province and kind of alarmingly, even down in the southeast near those contested islands.
Right, the maritime aspect.
Yeah, the conflict even spilled over into the sea. So this isn't some small, localized thing. It's spread out, geographically complex.
And that mention in the source about new weapons brought in from the Cambodian side, that's pretty sobering, isn't it?
It really is. It suggests potentially a shift in military capability, something that could, as the source mentioned, push the perimeter by another 50 kilometers.
Which means displacing even more people.
Exactly. And for those civilians already caught up in this, the uncertainty must be just awful. Our sources talk about thousands of Thai evacuees crammed into a university shelter. Many thought, okay, maybe 2 or 3 days, we'll be back home.
Right, a temporary disruption.
But now they're being told, well, it could be a week, maybe even weeks.
Oh, man.
And that kind of prolonged uncertainty, it just leads to this growing desperation. These are people, internally displaced who just weren't ready for this to drag on.
Absolutely. It's easy to get caught up in the diplomatic chess game, the military strategy.
Yeah.
But those numbers, 150,000 displaced, people living in fear, potentially for weeks, that's the real immediate human cost right there. It really grounds the whole thing.
It does. And you hear about the evacuation centers just struggling logistically to care for so many people for who knows how long.
Yeah, the strain must be immense. You could really feel the anguish in some of the voices quoted, like that Buddhist monk who stayed behind at his temple inside the evacuation zone.
Calling for a win-win solution.
Yeah, just find a way. For these ordinary people, all they want is to go home.
Which brings us right back to that central question we're trying to tackle in this deep dive. Why?
Right.
Why, despite all this suffering, despite the stated desire for peace, does the fighting just keep going?
Both sides keep pointing fingers, right? They started it. They violated the ceasefire.
Always. But there's this significant suspicion mentioned in the source from observers on the ground.
What's that?
That the military on both sides might still feel they need to, quote, complete certain operations before any real de-escalation can happen.
Ah, so tactical objectives taking precedence over a ceasefire.
Potentially. And this really leads into what a lot of observers think is the underlying driver here.
Which is?
That before the two sides actually sit down for serious ceasefire talks or talks about, how to manage this border long term, there's this strategic push to grab more advantages on the ground.
Okay, so like securing key positions.
Yeah.
Hillsides, strategic points.
Exactly. It's not just about land, maybe, but about sending a message, showing absolute resolve, both to people back home and internationally.
It's that classic pre-negotiation tactic, isn't it? You try to improve your position on the battlefield so you have more leverage when you finally get to the table.
Precisely. So any compromise later looks less like weakness and more like, a strong, calculated decision from a position of strength.
Right. So connecting this to the bigger picture, some people worried this could blow up into a full-scale war.
Yeah, there were those concerns, though given Thailand's stronger economy, the source suggests that wasn't seen as the most likely outcome.
Okay.
But there doesn't seem to be a really powerful, compelling reason right now for either side to just stop quickly.
Why not? You'd think the displacement, the deaths?
You would, but both governments seem very focused on projecting this image of being strong, being powerful. Neither wants to be the one seen to back down or yield first.
National pride, maybe? Historical grievances playing a role.
Very likely. That reluctance to concede, it often runs deep. Backing down can be seen as a huge loss of face. And that, according to the source, is really the core challenge at the moment.
Okay, so let's try and sort of wrap this up for you, our listener.
Sure.
We've really explored this central tension, haven't we?
Yeah, definitely.
On the one hand, you have this public stance from both Thailand and Cambodia saying, yes, we want a ceasefire, even engaging with the U.S. president's proposal.
The diplomatic face.
But then, the persistent reality,
Yeah.
shelling continues, and they just keep blaming each other for it.
And the core reasons we've sort of identified for why this keeps dragging on, well, they seem to circle around a few key things.
Go on.
First, that strategic push to get a better negotiating position, grabbing those hillsides, those tactical spots before talks really start.
Right, battlefield gains for diplomatic leverage.
Second, this powerful impulse in both countries to look strong and powerful, like you said, to absolutely not appear weak or like they're yielding.
Don't lose face.
And that ultimately means there isn't maybe what you call a real incentive perceived by the leaders to end things quickly, despite the terrible human cost we've talked about.
It's a grim calculation, really. So here's something maybe for you to think about as this situation develops.
Yeah.
Given that this conflict seems to persist, largely because both sides are so dug in on appearing strong and getting that strategic edge for negotiations, what's the ultimate cost of this pursuit of leverage? Especially for the very people, the civilians that these actions supposedly aim to protect.
That's a heavy question. And how do these really entrenched positions, driven by national pride, by strategic thinking,
Yeah.
how do they shape the actual long-term chances for real peace and stability there?
Something to keep pondering, for sure.